One of the few banks still using telephone interviews. What's up guys, it's Mike from Job Ready English here with another Pass the Interview video. Today we're going to be talking about Citibank, one of the 4 largest banks in the United States, employing almost 250,000 people and with almost 200 million customers. Now that number kind of blows my mind. To put it into perspective, that's almost 5 times as many customers as HSBC. I think for those of us in the UK, we don't quite understand just how big Citibank is, and this has been one of our most popular videos time after time over the years, mainly with our viewers from the States. Hi guys. So today we're going to talk about what you can expect from their telephone interview, 7 of the most common questions, and a strategy to think about how to walk through your CV with someone in a way that allows you to come across as compelling and confident. So stick around until the end of the video. So what can you expect from Citibank's interview? Well, I was really intrigued considering the size of Citibank and the amount of territories that it operates in and the number of employees that it has. For example, it employs 12 times more people than Goldman Sachs. And yet, most of the memories that we went through were people saying the same thing. I had a telephone interview, and then I had another telephone interview or a face-to-face interview. And of course, we're really concentrating on graduates a lot of the times when we make these videos, but it was the same for graduates, analyst positions, internships. Time and time again, we hear about the good old faithful telephone interview, which for some people, they'll be relieved about. Other people will be slightly concerned. I personally think telephone interviews are one of the best interviews that you can do because they can't see you. So you can have your notes in front of you, you could refer to stuff, you could look stuff up online, you could put somebody on mute. I think telephone interviews are really pretty groovy, and they're quite forgiving as well because it's a conversation with a person. So that's what you can expect. And normally what we'd say is that you'd allow 2 minutes to give your answer and 1 minute to think. But of course in a telephone interview it's a little bit more snappy, right? So somebody's going to ask you a question and then another question. But the one thing to think about with a telephone interview is this is really just having a conversation. And what was quite common with Citibank is this idea of having a CV screener or some sort of HR screening interview where they just walk through your CV, your experiences, just the general things about you and what you know about the role. And then they would pass you on to somebody who's a little bit more technically astute, who's going to be working in the department which you are applying to. So you should really get into your mind this idea of really refining a good response to tell me about yourself. It's something that we've returned to over and over again, and if you click the card up above, you should find an in-depth video for tell me about yourself, because this is the best place for you to start preparing for any type of interview, because if you can't sell yourself, it's very difficult for you to sell anything else. How long will the interview be? Generally first round interviews are about 15 or 20 minutes. I always say to people, expect 5 to 7 questions, something like that. An interesting fact that I've kind of noticed of the thousands of interviews that I've helped people prepare for, it's very rare that an interview will last longer than 7 or 8 questions. And you pretty much know what those questions are going to be. I tend to go into this in more detail in my book and also in the courses that I've produced. But just getting really accurate at question prediction can help remove a lot of the anxiety. So let's start to go through 7 questions that we picked out. But the last one that I'm going to talk about is this whole walk me through your CV, which is the bonus question number 8. Question number 1. Can you think of a time when you had to deal with a difficult client, and how did you handle that and resolve the situation? Now this is an example of a situational judgment question, and you should definitely be prepared when applying for Citi to answer situationally or easy technical questions which are related to your role. So if you're applying for IBD, then you should expect to explain a discounted cash flow model. If you're applying for equity capital markets, then you should expect to answer a question about a recent piece of financial news. So dealing with difficult clients is something that you'll have to get used to in the business world. Whether you're working in the back office, the middle office, or the front office, an investment bank, or just at a multinational corporation, you will speak to people who essentially will have the attitude that because they have given you money, you are now essentially their slave and you have to do what they tell you to do. Now, this is really about one of the core competencies of conflict resolution. So speaking to a difficult client, what's the most important thing? First of all, what's the problem? Yeah. So listening to the client, identifying why they are difficult. A lot of times the difficulty comes down to a client's expectations. The amount of time that it takes to do something, the amount of work that you are going to do. So those expectations generally come down to volume or time. The amount of work that you said that you would do, or the amount of time that you said some work would take. What makes this slightly more complicated is you might be dealing with a client who's spoken to Tom. Tom has promised that client something and that hasn't been delivered, and now you're the one that's, as the English would say, getting it in the neck. So you're trying to understand what exactly is the problem, to process that information, to give them an understanding of what you're going to do next. Do you have the power to respond, to make a decision? If not, then who does? Tell them you're going to go and speak to that person and you're going to get back to them. When will you get back to them? A lot of the times, most people can be placated if they get some sort of understanding, which brings them from a place of what the F is going on to, oh, okay, I spoke to Steve and he said that he's going to get back to me by the end of the day, so we're going to get some clarity. Because difficulties and complexities arise. Now, how you handle this and whether it gets resolved, ultimately, a lot of times, 9 out of 10, the solution's going to be resolved because you go, hey, here's that thing that you wanted, and the client goes, yay, game over. 1 out of 10 is when the compliant is a complete DICK, and you just end up thinking to yourself, why do I bother? But we all have clients like that. It's really nothing to worry about. And of course, the client is always right and we are here to serve. Question number 2, why do you want to work for CITI? There's something that you always want to have in your mind when you're answering why do you want to work for this company are, what are 5 fast facts about the company? And here are some taken from our up-to-date research note, which you can get in our CITI Pass the Interview pack. So CITI can trace its roots all the way back to 1812, one of its predecessor companies, the Citibank of New York. Citigroup is the 3rd largest banking institution in the United States and one of the big 4 banking institutions of the US. It operates in more than 160 countries and has approximately 200 million customers. In February 2021, Jane Fraser became the first female CEO of a Big 4 bank, and she took over the leadership of Citigroup. And the company has reported total assets of $2.3 trillion as of March 31st, 2023, and has assets under management of $759 billion to the same day. Now, these are all facts that you could pull off of Wikipedia. We go through and produce notes where we have over 90 facts. But the point of the fact is that these are specific to the company. 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing a one-to-one or helping somebody to prepare for an interview who hasn't done an interview for a while, definitely hasn't worked for me, is their answers are so generic. A really quick way to think, is this a good fact, is, could I say this about another company? I can't really say that for any other company, so these are good facts. What this is going to demonstrate to an interviewer on the phone is that you've done your homework. And guys, here's a little trick. It really doesn't take very long. It's going to take you 10 minutes to discover some facts. How do you present them? You could say, well, there are 5 reasons I want to work for Citigroup. Second is, if you really can't think of a creative way to do something, then just do it as a list. Don't stress yourself out. Question number 3, tell me about yourself. Now, this is probably going to be a precursor question to walking somebody biographically through your CV, which is going to be slightly different, and I'll cover it a little bit later on in this video. So tell me about yourself is split up into 6 parts. What are you doing right now? What have you done before? What would you like to do in the future? What's your work experience, your extracurricular activities and volunteering, and finally your skills and interests. Currently I'm studying a bachelor's degree. Previously I was at secondary school. I've always wanted to work in banking because I've worked at Domino's Pizza for the last 2 years. I've also been a volunteer for the YMCA, and I'm part of my university football team. I can speak 3 different languages, I can use Excel, and I'm also currently learning Python, for example. So it's just a really quick blow-by-blow account of who you are, what you've done, and where you're going. Question number 4, why do you want to do this role? Now, interestingly enough, when we went through a lot of the candidate memories, this didn't tend to come up that much in the initial first round interview, but it came up enough, and it is such a common question. It's one that I cover for pretty much all of the past interview videos, and it's still something where I consistently see people make mistakes, even when they book one-to-one sessions with me and they say that they've gone through my videos, and then I'll have a look at their scripts and I'm like, that wasn't quite what I meant. So, something you may not realise if you've not applied for a lot of jobs, and definitely if you've never been through the hiring process as an interviewer or as somebody who employs someone else, is most people who apply for your job have no idea what your job is about. Somebody sitting on Indeed, on LinkedIn, they're just like apply. And I have hired people for the last 10 years, in different capacities, my business and for other people's businesses. And one of the first things that always happen when I call someone is I'll say hi, it's Mike from Job Ready English, or from One Warrior, or from a different business. I'm just calling you applied for, and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, what job was that again? And you can just hear them frantically thinking, oh my God, find a laptop, figure out what this is. Because people don't just sit there and go, oh, I really want to work for Mike. I'm going to do my research and just apply for this job. I mean, that would be cool, but it doesn't happen, right? And the same for other companies. So when somebody asks you this, human resources, talent, they're really just screening out all of the nonsense and junk applications. Now, the good news is that if you did just randomly apply for CITI because you're like, whatever, apply, and then you get the interview, you need to go and read the job description. So basically, you split this into 2 parts. You say, well, working as a financial analyst at CITI, I would do, and then just sort of reword the job description for what you'd be doing. And then the next thing that you do is just list out 2 or 3 skills plus experiences or proof to really demonstrate that you would be good for this job. The most common response to this question is people basically saying like, wow, I'm amazing. Of course, that's why I want to do the job. And really, you'd be so lucky to have me because I'm just fantastic. And the employer's basically there going, yeah, don't call us, we'll call you. Right? Because they've got hundreds of people applying for jobs, and they want people who at least know what they're applying for and what they're going to be doing. Now, if the job description for the job that you're applying for at Citigroup isn't helpful, just find a job description somewhere else on Google. If you're in the UK and you've watched any of my videos before, you'll know that my favourite website is prospects.ac.uk. Question number 5. Can you explain when a new process has been introduced and how you coped with this or reacted? Now, banks are always changing. There's always new things being introduced, new regulations, new internal and external variables, and it's an environment where you have to be highly adaptive to change. Things are going to be different all the time. And the good news for you is that particularly if you're a graduate, this is something that you're incredibly used to. Not only are you growing up in an age when technology is changing faster than ever, but also you would have been very used to this at university or at your job. So it could be a new way of processing deliveries. It could be a new way of submitting your project work or your degree. Whatever it is, how do we break this down? Well, first of all, learning the process and understanding the process and the why that you have to do this thing. I think very often when people get frustrated with new processes, new technology, is because they don't really take the time to understand why this thing is being introduced. And also, much like most men, they don't just sit there for a couple of minutes and read the instruction manual and then afterwards wonder why they've put together a cupboard from IKEA, but it doesn't look like a cupboard, it looks like a table. So, it's really just taking that time to gain a good understanding of what it is that you're doing, what's changed, and why this change has happened. Question number 6. Tell me about a recent project that you've worked on. Now, this seemingly on the face of it is a very easy question to answer, but it's a question that I've seen catch a lot of people out. Why is that? Generally, it's because people don't explain stuff in enough detail. So if we're talking about a competency question and a situation, task, action, result, so where were you and what were you doing? What is the specific detail of the task that you had to do? When it comes to the action part, people either tend to ramble on about stuff that's not relevant, or they'll just talk too much about themselves. So when outlining a project that you had to do, it's really simple. Imagine you're teaching someone to do something. So first of all, we had to do this. Then second, we've got to do this, and third, and fourth, and fifth, and sixth. And here's a little helpful tip for you. Don't just talk about yourself. That's really quite revealing about your character. i.e., you're a bit arrogant, aren't you? So talk about other people, what they did, how it was helpful, useful. Very often, I certainly tend to find that I am deeply attuned to somebody who speaks well of others as being a high-level indicator of somebody who is good at teamwork. Question number 7, describe how you handled scenarios where you had conflicting requirements. Now, this is really much easier when you think about it in terms of multitasking, time management, or organisation. Now, really every single day of the week we have conflicting requirements. We might have requirements from friends, family, a partner, from work, from new people who are coming into our lives, from the internet, from technology, and so on and so forth. So this is really a question of how organized are you, how do you collect that information, how do you affect what information comes in and what information goes out, and how do you systematically, once you have captured these tasks, make sure that these tasks are completed or captured to be done at a later date. So finally, I wanted to talk about bonus question number 8, which is walk me through your CV. Now, this is a question that I see come up fairly regularly, and it's certainly one that's come up quite a few times when we looked through the memories for CITI Group. But a lot of people really struggle with this because they don't know where to start and what to do. First of all, we want to reframe this and think they don't really want to walk through your CV. They want for you to explain to them everything in your CV which is relevant to the job that you're going to be doing. So you need to understand the job description. You need to understand the skills. Say, for example, you're going for a technical role. You're going to emphasize about anywhere that you've used or learned coding skills. Where have you applied these? Have you applied these at work, which is ideal, or in a project or volunteering or some sort of other scenario that's outside of school? Try to emphasize the spots which really demonstrate you have the skills and experiences required to do the job as you're walking someone through your CV. You don't need to talk about your A-levels. You don't really need to talk about your degree that much unless it's relevant. Something else that I find that people will take quite a long time explaining is if they felt that they didn't quite get the grade they deserved. They'll spend 30, 60, 90 seconds explaining about something terrible which happened to them, and I mean no disrespect, but the interviewer doesn't really care. All they care about is if you're relevant for the job, and the best way that you can honour maybe a difficult experience that you have is really just put it to one side and talk about all the things that make you great at doing the job. So when you get asked the question, walk me through your CV, you want to spend a lot of time emphasising all of the experiences and all of the skills that are directly relevant to the job that you're going to be doing. Guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. I wish you the very best of luck with your interview. Please consider liking the video. Drop us a comment down below to share your experience or what video you'd like us to do next. Until next time, bye.